When Margaret opened the dusty box in her attic, she thought she was just cleaning up old memories. She didn't know she was about to uncover a love story that had waited 50 years to be found. The rain had stopped just before evening, leaving the air heavy and the windows streaked with silver trails. Margaret Holloway, 74, stood in her attic surrounded by cardboard boxes and forgotten furniture. She was preparing to sell the house, the same two-story home in Vermont, where she'd lived for nearly 5 decades. Her daughter had begged her to move closer to the city. "Mom, you can't live alone anymore," she'd said. Margaret didn't argue. She just nodded. She knew the time had come. But what she didn't know was that the attic still had one last story to tell. She was reaching behind an old cedar chest when her hand brushed something, a small wooden box, dusty and sealed with a tarnished brass lock. No key, just a name carved faintly on top. To Margaret. Her breath caught. She sat down on the floor, tracing the faded letters with her fingers. It couldn't be. Her late husband, David, had never been the kind of man to keep secrets, or so she thought. Using a screwdriver, she pried the lock open. Inside, wrapped in yellowed ribbon, were letters, nearly a dozen of them, each one addressed to her. She unfolded the first one carefully. The ink had bled a little with time, but the handwriting was unmistakable. "My dearest Margaret," it began, "if you are reading this, it means I never found the courage to say what should have been said." Her heart pounded as she kept reading. The date on the letter, June 12, 1971, just a few months before their wedding. In the letter, David confessed something she'd never known that before her. He'd fallen deeply in love during his military service in Vietnam. The woman's name was Lena, a nurse he'd met overseas. He wrote about how they'd planned a life together, but after a sudden attack near Da Nang, Lena disappeared. No trace, no letter, nothing. "I came home broken," the letter read, "and then I met you. You helped me breathe again. But there are nights I still see her face in dreams, and I wonder what became of her." Margaret lowered the paper slowly, her hands trembling. She had lived 50 years beside this man, raised children, buried him, loved him, and never once heard the name Lena. She hesitated before opening the second letter. It was dated 1985, the year their son was born. "Sometimes," David wrote, "I dream that Lena found this address, that she writes me back and forgives me for moving on. But even if she did, I would never trade the life I built with you." Margaret exhaled a shaky breath. The pain she'd felt moments ago shifted into something else, understanding. These weren't letters of betrayal. They were letters of guilt, of memory, of love that had nowhere else to go. Over the next hour, she read every single one. Some were short, some pages long. All of them ended the same way. "These are the letters I will never send." And yet, here they were, tucked away in a box, waiting all these years. As the storm clouds cleared, golden light began spilling through the attic window. Margaret sat there, surrounded by fragments of her husband's heart, realizing that she had never truly known all of him, but maybe nobody ever really knows all of anyone. She looked at the last letter, dated 2009, just a year before his death. In it, his handwriting had grown shakier, but the words carried more weight than ever. "If you find these someday, Maggie, know that every road, every memory, every second led me home to you. The past may have shaped me, but you are the reason I stayed. Tears blurred her vision as she pressed the letter to her chest. The attic felt different now, not just dusty, but alive, breathing with echoes of a life that had been both ordinary and extraordinary. Downstairs, the clock chimed 6 times. The world was still moving forward even as she sat frozen between then and now. Margaret picked up one of the old photo frames nearby, the two of them at a lakeside picnic, both laughing, wind in their hair. He looked at her the same way he probably once looked at Lena, but over time, the love had changed, deepened, settled. And suddenly, she understood. The letters weren't about another woman. They were about how we all carry old versions of ourselves, the people we loved, the mistakes we made, the lives that could have been. David hadn't hidden the letters to deceive her. He'd hidden them because some stories are too heavy to tell out loud. Margaret tied the ribbon back around the letters. She didn't burn them, didn't throw them away. She simply placed the box on the windowsill where sunlight caught the dust like floating gold. Then she sat at her writing desk, pulled out a fresh sheet of paper, and began to write. My dear David, I found your letters today, the ones you never sent. I wish I could tell you I was angry, but instead I just feel close to you again. You were never perfect, but neither was I. And maybe love isn't about perfection at all. It's about forgiveness even after we're gone. She smiled softly as she signed it. Forever yours, Margaret. That night, her daughter came to pick her up. As they loaded boxes into the car, the wooden one caught her daughter's eye. What's that, Mom? Just some old letters, Margaret said with a small smile. Ones that finally reached me. She placed the box on her lap as they drove away, the sunset painting the sky in soft gold. Outside the window, the world blurred past, but in her heart, every letter had found its way home. Some letters never reach the post office. Some are written for the silence, not to be sent, but to be felt. Because the truest words we ever write are the ones we keep.